So now we're going to talk about something kind of fun, which is how to create image rollovers. I'm over here in Dreamweaver in the design view, and only in the design view can I see the action of an image rollover. And what we get is I put my mouse on the image and it actually swaps to another image, and this is just something I created in Photoshop. That's simply a black and white version of the same image. So a couple of rules when you're creating rollover or swap images. The second image that's going to swap that you're going to create in Photoshop needs to be exactly the same size as your original image. If not, the second image is going to come in and take over the same space as your original, and it can get distorted. So in other words, I can't swap a vertical and a horizontal together because one of them will get switched into the format of the other one, which will distort it. So I typically open up my images in Photoshop and then just add some kind of gradient or layer style, something like that, to the original image, and then save it with the name over. So I now have versions of every one of my images, but now I have the word over added to them. So what I want is when I put my mouse on an image, that's the image that's going to appear. And that's going to make my website feel more interactive. It's going to make it feel alive. So that also probably would indicate to the viewer that these would all be links. So let's pretend that this is in a hypothetical website that when you clicked on one of these images, when I hover over it, it changes, and when I click on it, it takes me to a link of all about that particular image, and I can find out more information about that area. Another way that you can think of rollover images is a way to save screen real estate. Bring interactivity onto your website and save screen real estate. And what do I mean by that? I mean, what if the rollover image, instead of just being a visual change, actually had some information on it? So maybe this had some text on it that said, this is the approach in Troy, New York. Or this one says, this is the Freer building in Troy, New York. And it still could be a link, but it doesn't have to be a link. So rollover images can be interesting because it engages the viewer. It can be a part of the process of creating a link, and it also can be used to save screen real estate and just simply another way to give information, but without having two blocks here. So how do we do them? Well, as I already mentioned, the first step is open up your images in Photoshop and add some kind of effect to the image so that it looks slightly different, and then save it in the same location. Then we need to have our behaviors panel, which you probably don't have open. So I'll go through those steps and I'll uncheck my behaviors panel. Sorry, I need to get out of live view to be able to edit. And I'm going to close my behaviors panel so we don't have that. So if we go to Window and choose Behaviors, and then the next step that's very important is that you need to click on the image that you want to assign the swap image to. Don't do it if you're clicked out into empty space. So I want to make sure I'm on my image, that's active. I go to my Behaviors panel and click on the plus sign where it says Add Behavior, and I see a list of all the behaviors. And what are behaviors? They're JavaScript, actually. This is a little bit of JavaScript code that Dreamweaver is going to add into your web page to make it more interactive. We'll come back and look at other ones such as Open Browser Window and Pop-up Message, but for right now what we're looking for is Swap Image. And I get a pop-up window, and I see here a list of all of these unnamed images. Those are all of the images on my site, and I haven't named them. I haven't given them IDs, so they're called unnamed. The one that's highlighted is the one that I was on, and I want to leave it at that. And now I'm going to where it says Set Source, Browse, and now this is where I'm going to look for the over version. And if I forget the name of the image I'm on, I can always look down here on the source. It says I'm on the approach side, and I'm going to look for the approach side over. And click OK. And then click OK. And now over here in my Behaviors panel, two lines have been added. The bottom one says Swap Image on mouse over, and the top one says Swap Image Restore on mouse out. So automatically Dreamweaver added these little bits of JavaScript code that say when the mouse goes over, swap it to whatever image I had assigned, and when the mouse goes out, restore it back to this original image. Let's do another one together. So I click on the next image, plus sign, go to Swap Image. I'm going to leave it on the one that's highlighted. Where it says Set Source To, I'm going to browse, and I can see I'm on the bridge image, so I'm looking for Bridge Over. And click OK. And again, it puts that little bit of text there. So I'm going to save this, Control S, and view it in the browser window. And so now you can see when I put my mouse over, it switches over to the other images that I created in Photoshop. Now back over to Dreamweaver, just to point out a couple of things. If I didn't want it to swap back to the original for any reason, I could delete that. I could click on where it says Swap Image Restore and hit the minus sign. And now let's save the image again, save the page, and I'll preview it in the browser just so we can see the difference. So all of these, when my mouse goes out, they restore back to the original. But this one, when my mouse goes out, it stays at the new image, the swapped image. So sometimes that could be an interesting option. Just wanted to point that out. If I want to go back and edit it, I click on that image. And if I decide I actually want that swap image brought in, I'm going to click back on the plus sign. And here I can choose Swap Image Restore. And it's going to add it back in for me. The other option I can change is this doesn't have to happen on mouse over. It could also happen on mouse click. So where it says on mouse over, if I click on that, actually I get a drop down and I see a lot of other choices. And I'm going to look for where it says on mouse click, on mouse up, on mouse over, on mouse out. Here we go. Sorry, it says on click up here. Oh, and for some reason it's jumped on me. Swap image on mouse click. That's not what I want. I want that to be on mouse out. It swaps image. And I was supposed to be on this one. I'm not quite sure how that moved on me, but it did. Now it's really misbehaving. Let's put that back to on mouse over. Okay. And this one on mouse out, I'm trying to change to on click. And it doesn't want to do it. Let's try it again. I guess it's, okay, finally I got it. On swap image will happen on click, and then it will restore on mouse out. So let's test this and see if this is working. So now when I click it, it will change, and when I put my mouse out, it restores. I click it, it'll change. So it was definitely being a little bit funny there, and it didn't want to behave, but eventually, after just trying a couple of times, it did make those adjustments. So again, if you want to change that from being on mouse out, when I click here, I get the drop down, and now I can choose either the on click or switch it back to on mouse over. Okay, so for your practice, you're going to go through, and I want you to set all of these up to have their swap image.